And we're going to test fire the Edison Menlos. We're going to be starting with a transparent fire. He's going to be the star of the show, followed by the co-star, which is the aquarium flake. So let's write it out. Okay, he is the star of the show. Edison Menlo Transparent Fire. Let's go to our swirls. You get a little bit of line variation because it is gold, it is softer. That's a decent amount of line variation, but you don't want to rely on it for this because it is not designed for that. Let's do our lines. That's your standard extra fine line. Put a little bit of pressure. I'm not sure that we should be doing this all too often. And that is the Edison Menlo. It offers sufficient ink flow. I never have any hard starts or skipping issues. Okay. Now let's go to his co-star, the aquarium flake. This is a fine steel nib. Actually, let me write down what this bad boy over here was. Extra fine, 18 karat. And now we move to the aquarium flake. I'm just going to put AQ and then flake. And this one is also the star of the show. We're going to put co-star. And this is going to be a steel fine. Okay? I'll spell it out. Let's do our swirls. No line variation. I'm trying to get a little bit, but it's a very stiff nib as it is steel. Let's add another line. Once again, it's smooth, sufficient ink flow, never any issues with regard to ink starvation. Now, I want to compare these against an 18 karat Edison. I'm just going to put 18 karat Edison nib. I put NIF, great, can't spell. 18 karat nib in fine. Okay, we'll do our swirls. As can be said with all Edison nibs, I don't have any issues with this one either. Okay. Let's continue comparing with another extra fine German nib, Pelican M600. This is a 14 karat. Oh, I forgot to write over here. Oh no, I did. Fine. Okay. Draw our swirls. The Pelican nibs are made in-house. Slight line variation, but once again, not designed for it. Also a great nib. Has a little bit more squeakiness than the Edison nibs. Edison nibs known for having a wet nib but slight feedback. Let's go with a Mont Blanc 146. This is going to be a fine 14 karat nib. Swirl time. Very generous ink flow. Sometimes I find it just a tad bit too wet. Slight line variation as gold is softer, but once again, not to be relied on for line variation. It's not designed for that. Don't bust up your nib trying to get line variation. That's the Mont Blanc. Do we have room for some Italians, or do we go with Japanese? I say we go with the Japanese. Okay, here we go. We are at the platinum celluloid medium 14 karat nib. Swirl time. This one, although gold, does not offer very much in the way of line variation. They are very stiff nibs, even though they are gold. Much lesser line variation than other gold nibs. Okay, and finally, Sailor Fine. Ran out of room. Slight line variation, as you can see, as it's a very fine line, as Japanese nibs are designed. Okay, that's all the room we have. So let's take the transparent fire. We're going to make 2 columns here. Let's do transparent fire and aquarium flake. Draw a column going down so that way we can differentiate. Okay. Transparent fire, stacking it up against the Edison aquarium flake. Now the transparent fire, it is an extra fine gold nib stacked up against a fine steel nib of the same brand and the same nib maker and same nib tuner adjuster, everything being equal. These, with the exception of the slight line variation, they are on par to each other. The Edison Menlo with an 18 karat extra fine stacked up against an Edison 18 karat fine, it is obviously going to be finer. How does it stack up against the Pelican M600 extra fine? This is a tough one. They're very close when it comes to lines, with the exception of line variation. I have to say that they are equal. Against the Mont Blanc Meisterstück 146 fine, the Edison extra fine 18K is in fact finer. Against a Japanese platinum celluloid, medium 14 karat, it is also finer. And against a Japanese Sailor 14 karat fine, it is significantly broader. I'm sorry, I said significantly, not significantly. I would say slightly broader. Okay. Now, with the aquarium flake, stacked up against the transparent fire, once again, I say they are equal. Stacked up against an 18 karat fine nib, it is definitely a finer nib. Against the Pelican, it is also equal. Against the Mont Blanc, finer. Against the platinum celluloid, it is finer, slightly, and against the Sailor, it is obviously thicker. So that's your test fire writing sample / demonstration of the 2 Menlos that I have here. I hope this helps. Stay safe, be well.